Hey, Dr. Christensen here with you. I'm laughing because this is going to be kind of a, I don't know, funny, personal, revealing video. Question I got several times recently is, what did I eat yesterday? So the basic idea was, what do I personally eat? How do I implement it all? How do I make it work? And what's a typical day like for me? So I've heard that one before, and I've given some basic answers, but I don't know. I have a hard time giving partial answers and not being complete. So here's a complete answer. For starters, I log my food. I've done that for, boy, a long, long time. I first started, believe it or not, this was pretty silly, it sounds like it, but I was probably 12 when I first started getting into really dialing in my diet. And one of the useful things that I had from a doctor who gave me tried to help me about my weight was this brochure. And this brochure was laminated. It was like a trifold type size thing. And several pages were just calorie counts of common foods. And then there was a wheel that you could adjust for a day's calorie target. And you would dial back however many calories you consumed. And calories aren't a perfect science. Calorie counting is not effective for everyone, for sure. Food counts don't always have the calories you expect. There's a lot of ambiguities. But it was a helpful step for me. And I also learned about adding in protein that made it work better. But it helped get me started in losing weight. And I was really obese. So that was my first little foray into food logging. And I've had times where it's been on and off. But throughout my adult years, I'd say since first few years of my practice, life was just so overwhelming, and I was working so hard to build it and teach and lecture, get my name out. I was doing 14-hour days for 6 days a week pretty commonly. I wasn't healthy, and I was gaining weight again. But after that phase, boy, probably within the first 3-4 years of practice, I've pretty much logged my food 95% of the time since then. I've had brief windows in which I've stopped, but it's a habit I pretty much stick with. So anyway, enough about that. That's why I can answer the question, because I've got logs. So I'll share that with you. Also, I should tell you that when I'm answering that, when this is written, I'm training for Boston it'll be about 6 months out, the Boston Marathon. So I'm training a lot right now, and my food needs are different than they typically are. I've checked my basal metabolic rate, and normally it's about 2,400 calories to break even. When I'm training hard, I do better at about, based on how much, it might be anywhere from like 27 to 3,300. And my protein needs, I've seen that over the years, I do pretty well fit the gram of protein per pound of lean body mass as a bare minimum. I do better with a bit more than that. I run around 165 pounds, usually around 8 to 10% body fat. So about 150 pounds of lean body mass. So I really don't go under 150 grams of protein per day. So I'm always good at least about that much. Now, the day that I wrote this, I took yesterday's log. It was actually a pretty unusual day in one sense that I didn't eat up to my full target. That's rare. Usually I'm struggling on the opposite end of not going above the target or being on the upper end of that. But the day prior, I'd had also some pretty long workouts and was a little over target. So it does happen that over time it levels out, but yesterday was an unusual day in that it was a little bit less. Taking a look. So here we go. I'll show you these images and kind of walk through what this was. Let me pull up the images here for you. All right, so this was the pre-workout meal, and this was, it says 4 o'clock. It was probably about then or a little bit before. Just a quick thing. I had a small piece of rye bread, some flax milk. Pre-workout meals may be twice this or a little bit more, but they're usually about this size and about this much protein, not a whole lot more. One I'll do a lot too. I'll often do, sometimes I'll make up a pre-mixed version of a pudding almost. I'll make sushi rice, some flax milk, some protein powder maybe, some banana, some allulose, and cook up into that into a large base and have servings of it. But this day, it was just some rye bread and some flax milk. Post-workout, let's see, ounce of raw sunflower seeds, cup of blueberries, some whole oat groats, some non-fat Greek yogurt. That was my dairy serving, and also a cinnamon raisin Ezekiel sprouted English muffin. So this is pretty common, and especially what went in that one bowl. There was a little bit less oats than typical. I'm not sure if that was a logging error, if I was intentionally lower because I had the muffin, might have been. Usually it's a full serving of the oats, which is more like 160 calories. But those four things together, I have pretty much every day for a long time. Those are seriously deeply ingrained habits. So you can see here's 40 grams of protein, a lot of linoleic acid, which is a really good anti-inflammatory omega-6 fat, and also fair amount more of carbs, which I'm thinking about with just the training and energy and the gut flora. So that was post-workout. And let's see. Yeah, pretty normal for it. Now let's see what was next. Okay, so this was mid-morning. This is a common one too. So I had another piece of this is actually a Danish rye bread. So it's all rye flour and rye berries. It's not at all like the rye bread you see in supermarkets. It's much more granular, and it's like as solid as a brick. I mean, no joke. It's more sour in taste, more of a sourdough type consistency, and it's really small. They're small pieces and very dense loaves. So I love that stuff, and I have it often. I had another piece of that, had some egg white, some cannellini beans, some spinach, onions, and mushrooms. That's more of like the savory mid-morning meal where I work some veggies in as well. And that's also a typical one that I'll cook up pretty fast. You know, what I usually do is I'll do the egg whites just in a bowl in the microwave. Microwaves aren't radiation. Please read my post if you're concerned about that. And then I'll just stir the rest up in a saute pan. The eggs always stick, and I don't know, things don't cook as evenly when the eggs are together. So they work so well just separately. Then I drop them all back in and then toast up the bread, and there you go. There's mid-morning. So I think lunch would be next up. Oh yeah, I saw some notes. I stirred that all together and threw some sriracha on top of it. You know, I'll often do that, or umi plum vinegar, or some fermented vegetables for some flavoring on it all, and a little bit more variety as well. And the spices are good. Okay, and here was yesterday's lunch. Yeah, this was good stuff. I put beef stew here. Had I been working a little harder at logging, I would have broken down the constituents. This was a homemade beef stew. This one was a little bit different in that usually I get a lean stew meat. This one I ordered from Instacart. They picked up one that was less lean than I would have picked up. So I did choose a beef stew recipe that was a bit fattier than mine typically are. The lean ones I make at home are the one I normally use is leaner than that. And I just then put down, here's how much stew meat, here's how much potato, carrot, celery, peas, the basic constituents. But that's the basic mix. I just put together stew meat, some diced potatoes, some baby carrots, some celery, some onion, and oftentimes frozen peas, and then better than bouillon beef stock, which is super awesome. And the cool thing is you want to saute up the beef and just get it seared, and then add the other ingredients, and no liquid. So no liquid at all. Cover it up tight, let it simmer for an hour and a half or so, and it's so awesome. And you've got stew. You've got liquid that emerges, but it's all from the foods. It's not added water. You're not diluting any of the flavors. So I love my stews. They're really good. And they're common lunches. I'll often make that up in the morning and then just let it cook throughout the morning and be ready for lunch. So that was lunch. Mid-afternoon, I had some RS Complete, some pea protein, and some banana. Blended those up into a quick shake. Pretty typical thing there too. And this is like 2:30. Was that time stamped on there? It doesn't say, but yeah, that happens at like 2:30. You can almost set your clock by it because I'm famished by then. And dinner. So dinner was a quick one. I had some brown rice pre-cooked. We had a lot of bok choy that was done, and some chicken that was made up too. So I really just assembled the rice and the chicken, and then sauteed some bok choy with a little bit of toasted sesame oil. I seasoned that with some ginger and garlic and a little bit of tamari as well. And that was about it. So in terms of calorie load, that's a little light for my dinner. Dinner's often a bit larger than that, but that's where I came short on the day's target of 3,000 calories. That was short there, and I must have been short on a few other points too. But yeah, the day before was more, so it ends to even out. So that's a typical day as far as the foods. Now, here's how that plays out with nutrients. Oh yeah, here was activity levels for yesterday. I did about half hour of strength training. That yoga was really more like ankle rehab, and it was about a 65-minute run at a pretty easy pace. I'm still kind of building up my mileage right now, so nothing too extreme. For nutrients, here's how this played out for my macronutrient breakdown. Usually it's more like about 15% fat, but again, that stew meat that I had was unusual. And more commonly, 55% carbohydrate, 30% protein, and then 15% fat is more common. But this is not too big of a deviation. This is about where these things tend to fall for me. And you can see the various foods, what they contributed. And here's other nutrients. So protein, I did hit my goal of at least more than 150. Carbohydrate, I hit that goal. Fiber, yeah, I was way over my goal of 30. Actually, no, carbohydrate, I fell short. My goal was 400. I was at 300. Fiber, my goal was 38. I got 53. Sugar, stay under 102. And this is kind of a funny thing because this shows up even from just naturally occurring sugar in fruits. I don't really worry about that. So the times where I have higher amounts of fruit and I exceed this target, I'm not concerned about that in the least. Fat, no problem. Saturated fat, stayed in the target on that. Polyunsaturates, I was actually a little short. And had things been done differently, I would have added in some safflower oil as well and had a little less of the stew meat and come out better on that. Monounsaturates, they're not essential. There's no goal that way. Trans fats, you want them low. Cholesterol, I do better with less, like most do. And let's see what else we got. So here's a few different ones. For sodium, my goal was 2,300. I was just over that. If you ever watch closely, you'd be amazed how easily sodium can sneak into your diet. And also, I think a lot of that was from me using the data from a pre-made stew. Again, I didn't eat a pre-made stew, but I just pulled up a pre-made stew and used that in my logging. And that probably had more salt than my homemade one really did have. Potassium, I could have been low in that. I could have been below my target. I got my vitamin A, did well in vitamin C, maybe a little short in calcium and iron. Those things can happen pretty easily. I'm not sure, I did have a calcium fortified flax milk in the morning. I'm not sure if the one I logged was calcium fortified, but I think that was close. And I did take my daily reset pack, which compensated for the calcium as well. So, well, you asked me what I ate yesterday. And yeah, sorry if it was too exhaustive of an answer, but if you stuck around this long, you must have found it somewhat interesting. So hope that was helpful and just a day in the life. You know, the opposite end of that would have been a few years ago when I had had a lot of major surgeries, and I had about 2 years to where I couldn't exercise any part of my body at all. And I was just pretty much bedridden for quite a while. And during those times, I found that I couldn't exceed 1,800 calories without gaining weight. And I also had to still get my protein target. If I got below my 150 grams of protein, I would lose muscle mass. So the trick then was to get the protein but not blow way past the calories and to get the nutrients. And that was really tricky. I worked hard on that, and things sometimes fell short. It was a lot easier when I had more leeway like I do now. But that's a typical day. Any other notes that I had? Yeah, by and large, that was a common day, but there's really no foods I don't eat. In the past, I've had food intolerances show up on tests, but I was able to work through those by avoiding the foods, by adding in more variety, by having more RS in my diet. So as of now, I have no foods that I'm intolerant of, and there's really nothing I say no to. Like if I'm at a wedding, I'll take a bite of someone's cake, but I don't really I would never buy cake. I don't even like it, to tell you the truth. Or if the kids have ice cream, I'll have a bite or a taste here or there. But it's pretty awesome to be free of cravings and to really, reach a point in which your food choices are choices. I'm thinking about how to fuel my body. There's certainly a sense of pleasure and preference I take into account and my own natural tastes. But a lot of it is what's going to work out best for me, for my nutrients, for my health, my performance. And there's no longer a lot of cravings that I struggle with or things that derail me from that. And, the habits that I've talked about before put you in that place. So I hope you can have if you don't already, I hope you can have a relationship with food like that. And I've had times where I've not logged. And the one thing that if I had a magic wand to be different, is that if I don't log, I do overeat. I do end up creeping and getting larger and larger amounts, and my weight starts to go up. So I just stick with it. And I've had times in which I've tried to be more, purely intuitive or purely based upon hunger. It just doesn't work for me at this stage. Maybe that'll change, and I guess it could be seen as a hassle to keep track of it, but it's such a habit, and the amount of time that I spend on it couldn't be more than like 3 minutes a day of like weighing and measuring and logging. It's so automated. So that's the only thing that could be different, I guess, but it's all right. I'm pretty happy with that and have a good place with it. And I hope that your relationship with food can be a happy, healthy one, that it can serve you as well. Hope that was useful. Dr. C here with you. Perhaps some TMI, but that's my day, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.